Hello and welcome back to This Old Car. Today we're gonna get to working on the 2001 Saturn. And first thing I want to do is go ahead and we're gonna get it up on some ramps so that while I'm working under the hood, it's a little easier for me, so I don't have to bend over so far. And also, one of the other things I'm wanting to take a look at is where this front air dam is busted and being held on by a single black bungee cord. There is getting rid of that and possibly trimming up the rest of that front bumper facade and seeing if it's going to be relatively easy to tackle, just to trim it off and make it look decent and not so white trashy or look so junky to have a bungee cord holding the front bumper on. So as ramps are great, these are composite material ramps. Can't tell you the brand or where I got them, but I've used them for years. I feel better about these sometimes than I do about the thin sheet metal ramps that don't necessarily have a lot of structure or reinforcement support. These are fairly heavy duty ramps, and will work fine for this Saturn because it's not a very heavy car. As well as getting the car up into the air a little bit so I don't have to bend over so far when I'm working under the hood, because I am 6 foot tall, which makes working on such a low car difficult and a literal pain in the back at times. It will also give me enough room to get underneath the front of the car and the engine bay there for whatever bolts or fittings or what else I may need to get to. Also, once we get the car up on the ramps, we're going to have to go through and look and see what we can see as far as what needs to be replaced. Not my car, I don't drive it that much, so all I know is that it has progressively gotten worse at overheating on shorter and shorter trips. So we're looking at a thermostat probably being an issue, or even a water pump. So let's get into it. So as you can see on the passenger side, I've already got that ramp set. The way I set ramps is that I'll line them up with the individual tire with the wheels as straight as I can possibly get them. So that all I have to do is drive the 1.5 to 2 feet up onto the top of the ramp there. There's that. So let me show you the process of doing that. You usually have to come down and look at where the tire is. Line the ramp up. Something like that. But that is not actually lined up very good at all. The wheel there. And line up pretty well. You also want to make sure your ramps are straight so that as you drive up on them, you don't drive off of them.
Later.
So, just taking an assessment of what all we're going to have to do to get to the thermostat and the water pump on this Saturn that we're working on. If we follow the radiator, which is here, the electric fan on it, follow the radiator hose up to there. Like our thermostat housing is sitting right there underneath that fuel line, vacuum line. We come back this way, Guessing the water pump's going to be back in that direction somewhere. Kind of playing this one by ear, but looks like we're going to have to disassemble the top end of this to get into replacing what we need to.
1 hour later.
And not that far in, I've already had to stop and correct myself. This is the overflow tank for the cooling system, and this small tube runs all the way across the front of the engine for overflow, and then it's a looped system, so down there is a fill. The radiator doesn't actually have a cap on it. I don't know if you can, no cap. So I followed that down where that fill tube is, tees into that hose. There's the bottom of the radiator. It comes back here, and that is a thermostat housing on the other side of the engine. So I'll be honest with you, I have not looked at anything yet on proper maintenance or procedure for this vehicle. I don't have a Haynes manual for it, but I will be doing some research before I tear into it any further than that, because as bad as taking everything over there off to try to get room to work and get a water pump in there, it's worse over here. That's the power steering pump, cap with the orange writing on it, and it, yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, this is going to be a long one. Well, after conducting a little research, this is a very entailed job with a lot of caveats as far as what has to be disconnected and removed. And let's take you over some of this craziness here. So earlier I said that I misidentified the thermostat housing as being that. So that is just a water path there. It goes over the top of the named intake manifold valley cover, whatever you want to call it. But see down there, you got that one screw, that center screen. That is one of the screws on the back cover plate of the water pump housing that is almost externally mounted on this engine. It's like the water pump was an afterthought when they built this thing. But that goes through there, and there's the water pump itself. There's a whole unit right there, and if I can get the camera down there, you can see it's got a pipe coming off the back of it. That runs across the engine bay underneath the exhaust manifold here and runs back over to this side, and connects somewhere in there. I'll get you over there. There's the connections for there's the first connection for the heater core, and there's a temperature sensor, and there's the thermostat housing. Right, so the video I just watched, which was posted by the fishing reel on YouTube, if I read the name correctly, remember. The exhaust manifold has to be removed to access the pipe that's running across out of the back of the water pump to the other side, and it's actually one piece from the water pump housing across to the thermostat housing, where it connects to the rest of the plumbing for the radiator up there in the front. So I still have to take a lot of stuff off on this side, and maybe a few things over there, but mostly just disconnecting a few things. Just trying to make sure that I get all the caveats of what I might have to do before I start doing it and miss something and make a fool of myself for the internet. So there's the thermostat housing, if it'll focus. All right. And apparently, the whole exhaust manifold has to come off to access all that stuff. Lovely. I'm back. All right, checking back in. We've got the air box out, and right now started to work on I removed the heat shield from the exhaust manifold there, and I've started to break loose the exhaust bolts. I'm just gonna get them loose for now, and then work on breaking loose that union right there on the exhaust manifold at the end, so I can get those studs out of there. So we're coming along pretty well. So without the airbox in, then that is like the cover plate on the back of the water pump there. If we come around this way, the water pump, the water pump is there, and it's got that water pipe coming out of it. It runs underneath the exhaust manifold and runs into this weird fitting over here that I'll also have to start taking loose. But that's where the heater core hoses are. Temperature sensor was there. Well, it is there. I've just unplugged the wire harness from it. And that is thermostat housing. So disconnect the hose just past that, and should be able to take whatever bolts are holding this end of this water pipe in assemblage. So I got two up here. Down I can't get a good angle on the bottom side. At least one or two down there. So yeah. The water pump and thermostat replacement for the Saturn are fairly involved. Check back in soon. Alright, I'm back. Got a little more stuff out of the way. Got the exhaust manifold disconnected and removed. And let me tell you, that fighting that thing out of there wasn't no joke. Luckily the hangers have enough give in them. Just need to pry evenly and carefully. So here you can see the water pump assemblage a little bit better. You got the timing chain cover, and then this portion here with the pipe coming out the back is the actual water pump assemblage. Alright, that pipe comes over to here. It goes through there, connects there. It actually serves as the thermostat housing and the branch off for the heater core as well. So, almost done with the complete removal of everything that we're going to have taken off. I don't know. Alright, I'm about ready to start reinstallation. We've got area where the actual water pump is going to meet the face of the mounting surface. Got it cleaned up as much as possible. And we've got the new thermostat in its home, and the thermostat housing unit there, which has to be reinstalled onto the pump. And then have the gasket for the water pump installed. Now, installed it. This style of gasket can be a little tricky because it may not size just right. So I was having some issues with this one sitting on there correctly. So being a rubber composite style material, so ran some hot water over it to help it expand, and then put it in its place, set it in place, and as it cooled it tightened up and didn't give any fitment issues. Just if you got a gasket like that that's not going to sit where it's supposed to, and trying to mate it up against a surface like that, there's no telling whether or not it's actually going to be in the right place when you go to try to bolt it down. Alright, let me get to putting this thing back together and check back in.
Eventually.
While I'm losing light out here, I just wanted to show you folks what having an articulated magnet tool will do for you, because this little fella decided to jump out of my hand before I had it threaded into the water pump sprocket while I was installing the water pump, and fell down into the timing chain. And without this articulated magnet, I wouldn't have been able to get it out without probably taking the entire engine out of the car for one bolt. So, okay folks, in the comments, see if you can tell me how many times I had to retrieve bolts from inside the timing chain cover and housing. Go ahead, take a guess. No, really, go ahead. There you go. So this next section, I'm trying to align the impeller mount with the actual timing chain sprocket for the water pump. Getting the location of the timing chain cover on the back on the engine and how narrow it is. They use the cameras and a little bit of an aid to try to help out with the section. It was not easy. But perseverance sometimes is the key factor. got it back together. We're running. Now we just need to test it out, check for leaks. So far it's gotten up to temperature once, there's no leaks. So we'll see how it does. Okay, after running a heat cycle and coming back and tightening up some bolts, I think we have taken care of drips we were having. Now, right about center screen is a hole in the water pump. It's called the weep hole. That's just where water is supposed to bleed out from time to time if your impeller's not quite spinning right or what have you. So you shouldn't have water gushing out of there, but to have a little bit of water come out of there every once in a while is supposed to be a big deal. These Saturn motors are something different. So the water pump is time chain driven, and then that metal pipe coming out back of the water pump is sealed with an O-ring. It goes across to your thermostat housing, which is back over here, and that side's sealed with an O-ring. And just the pressure of the two being located within a certain distance of each other and bolted in place, supposed to keep everything from leaking. I wasn't too sure about that at first, but so far haven't had any problems there. Well, went ahead and took the busted portion of the bumper off since it was just hanging on by a thread. So far with the Saturn, we've got the water pump replaced and it's doing well, but as is the issue with a lot of these older cars, you replace one thing and you find something else that needs work. So I got the water pump in, everything fixed up with that. Went for a test drive and found a hole in the side of the ABS plastic on the radiator. So next up is going to be getting a radiator to replace the one that's in there. Stay tuned, folks.